Cold aisle. Protocol. I used to think a data center was the safest place to work nights. Everything is locked, logged, climate controlled. The loudest thing is the white roar of crack units pushing winter through the floor. I'm 27, overnight tech for a co-location facility out by the highway. My job is simple. Badge people in, swap dead drives, clear minor alarms, and never open both ends of a cold aisle at once. Airflow is a religion, my manager says. Break faith, and the room gets mad. 2 rules taped above the desk. Don't silence an alarm you didn't cause, and don't prop the loading bay door. The blue LEDs pretend to be stars. I like the hum. It makes thoughts feel smaller. The demo label printer, next to the spare drives, spit a strip by itself. Do not open. We print those for customer gear that shouldn't be touched. I hadn't sent a job. I laughed, stuck it on the monitor like a superstition, and went back to swapping a blinking amber in row 7. Not a rattle. Knuckles. Measured. I froze with a tray, half slid out. Silence. Then the faint whistle of underfloor air, like someone had shushed me from underneath. I closed the tray, logged the swap, and told myself a cable had tapped metal when the fan spun up. Energy makes liars of you. At 12:07, the environmental panel chirped, "Cold ISIL 3, door ajar." I glanced at the camera grid. The aisle looked normal. Clear strips hanging on their magnet. Doors closed. Floor tiles sweating a little cold. Probably a magnet, I said to the room's roar, and walked row 3 anyway. Cold aisle doors all look the same. Metal frame, clear PVC, a latch you can work with gloves. Inside the cold, sound becomes a different animal. The fans stop being background and turn into teeth. Blue LEDs lined up like runway lights. I love that part. It feels like walking inside a thought, just the back of servers, cabling like kelp in a fast current. The underfloor air drawing at my pant leg like it wanted me to lean closer. The clear door at the far end shivered again, even though the room wasn't moving. No voice, just the sense of a mouth too close to the mic, and then 3 slow words dragged through static like they were heavy. Leave. It closed. Copy that, I said, because talking makes ownership of air. No answer. I backed out of the aisle, let the door slap and seal, and stood a second to hear if the room would tell me I'd have done the right thing. At 12:23, a chat popped up on the kiosk we use for remote hands tickets. Customer, Herman N. Coincidence? I know we host 12 Hermans. The message read, "Please power cycle row 3 core. Don't open." I was reaching for the phone to call my manager when the lights dimmed a hair, just enough to make the LEDs blink together like an eye. The crack unit's pitch wobbled and came back. The environmental panel chirped again. Hall door open. Row 3. I looked at the camera. The far cold aisle door stood 2 inches open. At the door, the clear strip curved a measly arc. The latch looked fine. I pushed it closed. The seal kissed and held. As I turned, a handprint bloomed from the inside of the clear strip at my shoulder. 5 long ovals and a heel, fogging in the cold and dragging an inch before fading. I watched it right itself and vanish like it was embarrassed. I did what my job pays me to do. A full visual of row 3. The back of rack LEDs flickered in a pattern I couldn't name. I leaned to look down the line and saw nothing but a rolling ladder, 1 slot out of place from where I left it earlier, facing the cold aisle door like it had a plan. Back in the control room, the label printer spit another strip. Do not open both. I didn't stick that one anywhere. The timestamp in microscopic ink on the edge said 0313, and for a moment, the clock on my screen also said 0313, then blinked 1241, like it changed its mind. At 1:06, a remote IPMI console we keep parked on a crash cart woke on its own, screen blooming to a BIOS page. For a server in row 3 I hadn't touched all week, the blue box marched to shut down, without my hand on the keyboard, hesitated, then backed off to cancel. The far camera showed the cold aisle empty, and then for one frame not empty, a hunch of pale shape, like a person standing too close to the PVC head, tilted to read the warm condensation letters my breath had written without permission. The fire alarm panel clicked, a relay testing itself. My radio said, in a voice paced like a metronome someone was learning to use, "Don't open, don't open." I didn't say what, not the hollow drum of boots on tile. A single step, corrected, like someone remembering how weight works. It landed a half beat behind my own as I walked the hall toward row 3 again. It's muscle memory in a place full of rules. I told myself I was imagining it until the PVC clicked lightly, the sound plastic makes when it flexes against something that wants to learn its shape. "Not both," I said out loud. "I hear you." My voice felt ridiculous in all that white noise. The far door eased itself open an inch. The pressure difference pulled a thread of frigid air up my sleeves. The environmental panel down the hall barked red. The crack units ramped, like lungs waking up for a sprint. Somewhere in the hot aisle, a rack fan spooled high enough to whistle. The door behind me swung wider than I left it. The hair rose on my neck. Out of the corner of my eye, across the perforations, a face leaned into the gap between servers and listened. It wasn't a face like a face. I backed out, the door slapping against my shoulder. No, both. The panel still flashed. The urge to fix what I'd caused tugged at me like a cape. Heat and fan and white roar made a box around my head. In the backplane glare, I saw hand smears ghosting the perforations in a pattern. 5 ovals, heel, slide. 5 ovals, heel, slide. They lined up at shoulder height all the way down, as if someone had practiced walking this corridor, using the racks as braille. At 1:39, the whole room inhaled. The fans didn't slow. They aligned, a synchronized swell, like surf, deciding to crest at once. A knock landed behind my ear. 2 quick taps on the metal upright at the end of the row. I told my bones to keep my head facing forward and my feet moving. At the far end, the hot aisle crash bar stuck for a breath, and then gave with a wet pop, like a gasket reconsidering its job. Cold wrapped me again. I pulled the near door of the cold aisle shut, then jogged to the far end. The panel calmed. The crack units stepped down. The BIOS screen on the crash cart winked to a blinking cursor, like a child who forgot its lines. The chat window repainted itself empty. I sat. I watched. I wrote down numbers. The room went back to being a room. At 3:13, because some things like rituals, the camera feeds blinked once, and every LED in row 3 brightened together, as if smiling for a picture. The printer spit one last label. "Don't open." I put it in my pocket and didn't feel silly. "Quiet?" he asked, "because that's the joke." I didn't mention the handprint, the smack of the bar, the whisper that tried to learn its own pacing. The cameras would show nothing he couldn't explain. With lag, I quit nights a month later and told HR I wanted people in my day. I moved to software, where cold is a metaphor, and fans don et teach you to be careful. I kept one thing on the corkboard above my new desk, a label that reads, "Don, T open both." At home, My apartment has baseboards that wheeze when heat comes up, and a fridge that hums like a crack unit in a different key. Sometimes at night, walking the hall to the bathroom, I feel the pressure change like a door down the hall swung itself an inch. I keep my palms off the walls. If my building inhales and holds it for just a second, I stop in the doorway and do what the room taught me. I leave it closed. I almost propped my bedroom door and the hallway door to let the breeze play. I let the door rest against the jamb and went back to bed with a hum for a blanket, thinking about magnets and faith, and the way some places don't want a straight path, even if you've got nothing to carry. When the night turns impossibly still, like every fan in the world hit the same beat and waited, I hear very near a voice that has been practicing with my radios for a long time. Leave.
If you survived this far, leave your like to prove you are not afraid.